Our first speaker today is an excellent communicator. I talked to Paul a couple days ago when he showed up, and I said, oh, it's great to have somebody who won the COSI, and I like to think that we launched his career as a communicator of science. And he said, well, I didn't win. He was a runner-up, but at that time we did publish a few of the runner-up essays, and so he did get published in Dixis, as I recall, right? Yes. So Paul is an astrophysicist at The Ohio State University and chief scientist at Columbus's Ohio Center of Science and Industry, also known as COSI. As I said, he's a DOE CSGF alumnus, 2007 to 2011, and a runner-up in the CYSE contest in 2012. He received his PhD in 2011 from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and held postdoctoral appointments in Paris and Italy, quite glamorous, before joining Ohio State in 2016. He now hosts the Ask a Spaceman podcast and YouTube series and the Space Radio program on public radio stations. As a science communicator and astrophysicist, he regularly appears on television programs and networks. And his book, Your Place in the Universe, I'll get it right, will be published this fall. So welcome, Paul Sutter.
Thank you. I'd like to start off this morning with a little test for you. Just a quiz, it's very short. I want to see if you, this audience, is capable of reading math. So the next slide is going to have an equation on it. I'm going to show the slide. I'll give you a few seconds to process it, get yourself ready, and then when I give the signal, we're all going to read the equation out loud together. You think you can do it? Trust me, it's really easy. You think you can do it? You're ready? Are you mentally prepared? Okay. So here's the equation. Take a moment. Look it up on Google if you need to. And now in a clear, confident voice, AX equals B. Very good, very good. Congratulations, everyone. You can read this very simple equation. Now, there is a point to this. There's a movie coming out this September called UFO. Stars David Strathairn, Gillian Anderson, Ella Pornell, Alex Chance, great cast. I was attached as a science consultant for this movie. Starting about 2 years ago, I worked with the writer and director, working through issues with the script, which there were a few issues with the script, but the director and writer, they wanted all the science, all the math to be legit. I was on set about 1.5 years ago, a few days as they were filming. I was preparing stuff to go on the blackboards, making sure all the equations are right, even very small details, like if there's a room full of scientists, what kind of laptops will they have? Very cool, very cool. And in this movie, Gillian plays a professor, a math professor, who is teaching a course on linear algebra. And so, of course, some scenes take place in the classroom, and some scenes she has to give a lecture, and then there's interactions and altercations with the students, and the plot ensues. And one of her lines that I kind of wrote is she's teaching and she's introducing AX equals B, this basic linear algebra equation to her class. She had no idea what it meant. Absolutely no clue. And why should she? She's not a math professor in real life. She's not a scientist. Why should she? So, but she has to pretend to be one, and she has to pretend to be one convincingly. So she asked me, well, she asked the director, who then asked me, to make a video, reading her lines, like doing her scene, so me pretending to be Gillian pretending to be myself, of just reading, like, A is a matrix, the whole deal, running through her lines so that she could pick up the cadence and the style that someone who knows that very simple equation very, very well and has been using it and studying it for years, that ease, that confidence of knowing something very well and being able to explain it in front of a room full of people. She didn't know how to do that. She needed to pretend to know how to do that. We'll see. I didn't watch her do the scene, so we'll see September 4th when the movie comes out how convincing my training was for her. And I tell this story because, one, it's an awesome story, and two, it highlights to me the disconnect between scientists and non-scientists. Scientists speak a language very well. We are amazing communicators. We are amazing communicators. I've seen your talks. I've been coming to this conference for many years. Amazing communicators in our language, using the jargon, using the math of our specialization. Most people don't speak that language. Most people can't even take a simple phrase like AX equals B. They have no idea what it means. It's totally foreign to them. There is a fundamental separation there, a communication, a language barrier between scientists and non-scientists. But let's take a hypothetical. Let's say you had a chance to speak into the hearts of everyone in the world. Someone gave you, a giant megaphone, and you could say one thing, one statement, and you could share something about your field with everyone in the world. What would you want people to know? This is not a rhetorical question. I actually want answers. One thing in your field you want everyone in the world to know.
I was actually thinking about something bigger about science in general.
Fair enough. Go for it.
Science is not so much about the particular things that a given scientist does, but about a way of thinking guided by evidence and reason.
That'd be a wonderful thing for everyone to know. Anything else? Back here.
Nuclear waste isn't green and gooey.
Nuclear waste is not green and gooey. That'd be a wonderful thing for people to know. Back here.
I want them to know about wave-particle duality.
You want them to know about wave-particle duality? You know what? That is a very cool thing for people to know. I agree. That's it. That science is okay.
Not all problems can be solved exactly. Most can't.
Not all problems can be solved exactly. Very important life lesson that everyone ought to know. Matt.
Math is not adding and subtracting things.
Math is not adding and subtracting things. In the back.
You live in California, Oregon, or Washington. You haven't had a bad earthquake in over 100 years.
You haven't had a bad earthquake in over 100 years. Very cool, very cool. Any more things you would like for the whole world to know, or the people living on the West Coast? A subset of the world.
Robots are only as good as we know how to program them to be, and we don't know how to make Terminator.
We don't know how to make Terminator. Very good, very good. I love this. I love this. These are basically anything else that people want to share just with this room? I mean, all right. Let's first let's tell them about Calculus 1, and then we can tell them about spectral methods. There was a hand back here, right here.
Bringing back the woolly mammoth is probably not going to work.
Probably not going to work. I mean, there's a small chance, but probably not.
Climate change is real.
Climate change is real. Anything else? Anything else you want the world to know?
There's no such thing as a gene for blue eyes. It's an illegal. Everybody has that.
There's no such thing as a gene for blue eyes. That's great. This is awesome. These are all lovely facts, and in fact, I've learned some things just now. And wouldn't it be great if the whole world knew these very basic statements, based on your specialty, based on your expertise, based on your knowledge, based on the decades or even centuries of researchers that have come before you, this accumulated knowledge through this method that we call science? Wouldn't it be great? But most people don't know this stuff. Most scientists aren't given the opportunity to speak to the whole world. No scientists are given the opportunity to speak to the whole world. Why is that? Why can't scientists connect with audiences? So here's another question that Tom is going to pay very close attention to. Most science communication is not done by scientists. The vast majority of science communication is not done by scientists themselves. It's done by journalists, it's done by editors, it's done by producers. Are there flaws in that system?
People don't understand statistics.
People don't understand statistics, and the people writing about science don't necessarily understand the statistics that they're writing about.
They don't understand that 1 out of 20 studies is expected to be wrong.
1 out of 20 is expected to be wrong, or 1 out of 20 studies will be right by pure chance.
Is this a good thing or a bad thing?
Is this a good thing or a bad thing?
That's the question they always want answered, and it's not answered.
It's not always answerable. In the back.
The academic process doesn't reward science communication.
The academic process does not reward or incentivize science communication.
It always bothers me that the implications of a work and the benefits are always oversold, thinking like we're going to be zooming around in the sky tomorrow is the way it seems half the time, when actually the challenges are much more significant than that.
Just a little bit of hype. Just a little bit of hype. Over here.
And kind of going off of that, they don't exactly highlight what are the limitations of what they're talking about in the way that you probably should in a proper journal.
Exactly. If you try to translate a journal article to, say, a press release or a popular article, a lot gets left out. A lot gets left out. A lot of the nuance of scientific discovery. Anything else? Tom, are you taking notes?
I am.
Tom, by the way, is an amazing science journalist. You really are. I had to say that.
You always have to get someone else in the field to comment on the results, whatever they are, some other professor.
You need another voice. You need that balancing opinion. I think it's bogus. There's always that guy like it right there. I've been that guy sometimes. Yeah.
Non-uniform representation of different fields.
Non-uniform representation. Astronomers get most of the airplay because we have the cool pictures. I'll be honest. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Not uniform representation of the people doing science either. Anything else? Any other issues that you have with the way science is communicated to the public right now? We have a pretty exhaustive list, maybe. So we have an opportunity here. We have an opportunity to change this because we have the opportunity to not go through science journalists or editors or producers. We have the opportunity to communicate science ourselves directly to audiences. And there are some benefits. There are some benefits to sharing science directly with audiences, either live, in person, or in the media, or in social media. What are some benefits to that? Yeah.
I mean, if someone is skeptical of science, if you, in their view, are a trustworthy person, if you're communicating your view of science, then they're more inclined to trust you. They're more kind of accepting the science, not just being, oh, that's some scientist that I don't know is doing something just for fun.
That's huge, putting a face on it. You may distrust science, but you trust me, right? I'm your friend, I'm your relative, you could trust me. You are a face of science, absolutely. What are some other benefits? What was that?
I just want them to vote for science.
You just want them to vote for science.
I don't really mind if they don't understand everything.
You'd make an excellent politician.
The editorial board of the failing New York Times.
Very cutting commentary there. Yes. Any other benefits?
It can just cause people to look at established worldview a little bit differently.
This is your voice. You have a voice that can impact the world, that can change people's minds.
I don't know what you're thinking of us as communicators, but we also can listen. We're saying and adapt our way of thinking about how to communicate based on the feedback.
Communication is a two-way street. Notice that I got away with a 45-minute presentation by having 5 minutes of content. Yeah.
It's fun to talk about science.
It's kind of fun.
Communicating it, the more fun it is for both parties and not just me.
Exactly. Over here.
Sort of selfishly can help you understand your own work better by thinking about how to simplify it to ideas that everyone can understand.
Yeah. Do you really understand it? If you can't explain it to a 5th grader, then Richard Feynman says you don't really understand it.
Can it influence someone in private industry who might want to commercialize your work?
Yeah, money. That's awesome.
Might inspire someone to become a scientist.
You might inspire the next generation because we all need competition in our field, right? Oh, maybe not. Let's talk about that one later. But no, inspiring the next generation. We need science to keep going. Any other benefits to directly communicating your science?
You can control the message and try to convey as much nuance as you want and not have any loss in translation.
You control the message. Because the message is your voice. The message is your writing. No editor or journalist or producer is going to chop it up, slice and dice it, make it fit their own agenda. Any other benefits?
Also lends authority to what's being said because it has been cut up and pasted back together.
Yeah. It's directly your own thoughts. And do you realize how much authority you have? How much power and respect you have when you say, I'm a scientist. I'm an engineer. As soon as you say that, the respect people have for you goes up. The regard people have for you goes up. The awe, like, wow, you're so smart. You must be, I failed chemistry in freshman year. People have enormous respect and high regard for science and scientists. They may distrust the results of science because lots of competing factors for people's beliefs, but they'll trust you. They really will. You have a lot of power in your own voice. You have a lot of power in your title. You have a lot of power with your education. You have a lot of power with your position, and you can use that power. So these are all, I agree with everything you've said. Usually when an outreach event is advertised within a department, say, oh, we've got a field trip coming, we need someone to talk. I've read these emails and see the justifications people use. And some of them were echoed in just a little bit. You know, practice giving talks. Wouldn't it be great if you were a good communicator? You know, you get a deeper understanding of your core discipline. Outreach is nice. The kids love it. And, you know, broader impacts, we kind of have to do it. Just get it over with. These are the standard justifications for outreach. You've given a lot better justifications for outreach. Because all this is BS. I mean, it's not false, but it's not the reason we do outreach. Let me change the emphasis in that question a little bit. Instead of why should we do outreach, why should we do outreach? Why should we be the ones communicating with audiences? And my response to that is no one else can do it. We've highlighted already the flaws in the current model of science communication, relying on intermediaries between scientists and the public. There's a lot of strengths to that process. That process has operated for decades, but there are flaws. And we don't have to subscribe to that process if we don't want to. I have a good friend, Fraser Kane. He's the publisher of universetoday.com. This website gets 5 million unique visitors a month. Tremendous audience. He goes around to departments, astronomy departments, and he has a talk entitled, "Put Me Out of Business." He wants scientists to communicate directly with the public. I'm sure he'll figure out another way to make money. But he wants to bring down those barriers, and I think he's absolutely right. The barriers between scientists and the public simply don't exist anymore if we don't want them to exist. The traditional model of communicating science that's operated for decades is a researcher works in the lab, comes up with a result, publishes in a paper. The university press office is monitoring those papers, sees something interesting, combs through the paper looking for a pretty picture. Oh, wow, that's a great pretty picture, flashy title. They wrap it up, they interview with the researcher, or maybe a grad student, but usually the PI who had nothing to do with the work, but something, never mind. And you know, they get some quotes, they get some juicy quotes, they put a nice headline on it, then they blast it out to every journalist on their list. The journalists, if they think the headline's catchy, they'll usually just reprint the press release. Sometimes they might modify, you know, they'll swap the paragraph so now it's theirs. They might re-interview the scientist. They might get that other opinion of, this is bogus. They might put that in, and they call it a day. There's a certain level of gatekeeping between science and the public. Same thing with TV. Same thing with TV. A producer has an idea to create a show. They gather the money for it, and they start searching for scientists who might comment on this. They'll stick them in a room, put a camera on them, put some makeup on them, start asking them 50, 100 questions over the course of a couple hours, getting hours of material, and they'll chop that down to about 2.5 minutes, and that gets slotted in to this segment. And then they bring in, and then they have their own script writers, and their script writers write a script, and they have some narrator or some host thread that needle, and then it cuts to the scientist, and then it's taken out of context, and the whole deal. There's a gatekeeping there. There's a gatekeeping there. Sometimes that process faithfully represents the science and the scientist. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. So we have an opportunity here to not go through those gatekeepers. We have an opportunity for us to communicate directly with audiences, but the question is how, right? How do we do it? There are so many ways to connect with audiences now, which is awesome and also intimidating. How do you pick a platform? How do you pick a venue? How do you grow an audience? How do you build that level of trust? You get a lot of built-in trust, like I said. Trust, by the way, in respect that a journalist or a producer would kill for. That level of respect that you have automatically because of your education, because of your role in society, it's very hard to replicate. So how do we do it? Here's how I did it. With all these platforms, all these channels, all these ways, in this super hyper connected world that we live in today, we can take advantage of that. Step one is just pick one thing. Just start somewhere. Do you like writing? Start writing a blog. Do you like making sarcastic comments? Open up a Twitter account. Who does simulation work in this room? Do you generate a lot of pretty pictures? Yeah. Put those, no, okay, fine. It's bogus. If you make a lot of pretty pictures, put those pictures on Instagram. Do you like talking to a room full of people who aren't really listening to you? Talking to a camera instead. It's the exact same thing. And then put the video on YouTube. You're like, oh, the production looks horrible, the lighting is bad. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Okay, a couple people care. Most people don't care about production values. They want to hear from scientists. You have no idea the appetite that people have for this, the hunger for this. Not just astronomy, astrophysics, physics, fields that don't get a lot of airplay in traditional media. You have no idea how much people want to hear directly from scientists. You're tired of the current model of the gatekeeping. Audiences are tired of the current model. They're tired of the hype. They're tired of the filtering and the bias and the agendas. They want to hear from scientists themselves, I promise. So you have an opportunity here to do something, and you will find your audience. Your audience will find you. This is a benefit of being in this super hyper-connected world, is all you have to do is put stuff out there. The people who want to hear that kind of material will find it. They are actively searching. They're putting in search terms into YouTube right now. They're pulling up results on Google looking for an interesting blog. I guarantee you, they are looking for it. They are hungry. They want to know what scientists have to say. They want to hear the process of science. They want to hear the caveats and the statistics and the blind alleys and everything about this scientific process. They really want an inside look. They want a peek behind the scenes. They don't want that polished presentation. Well, there's always an audience for the polished presentation. Here's everything we're really confident about the universe, except 5 years from now when we reboot the series and it's all different. But they want the behind the scenes. They want to see how it gets done. They want to see what scientists look like. I talk to a lot of high schoolers. I talk to a lot of middle schoolers. They're under a lot of pressure to choose a career. They're under a lot of pressure to choose a direction in life. They're looking for role models. They're looking for examples. They're looking for people that look like them, just a little bit older, who are doing something that they've always dreamt about doing. Audiences, people, humans, are looking for you, and all you have to do is make yourself visible. The audiences will find you. You might run into some resistance because, like we mentioned, universities, faculty, lab researchers are not incentivized to do research. Sure, there's a little thing about broader impacts in the grant. Doesn't really matter. The tenure committee doesn't really care. The grant committee doesn't really care. But we have to do it. We have to do it because the academic world, the social world that science is embedded in is different than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 400 years ago. We live in a different world now, and science has a different relationship with society than it used to have. And part of that is we must communicate directly with audiences. We must share with the public because the current gatekeepers are letting us down for the most part. Not you, Tom, you're great. Even though I only got second place in the communicating your science. I'm just saying maybe you're not the best tastemaker. I'm just still holding the grudge, man, but I got a book coming out this November, which I think is the best. I'm sure you'll have some editorial comments about it. The gatekeepers are letting us down. They're letting the audiences down. We don't need the gatekeepers anymore. That's my thesis. Thank you.